Seth Rollins turned with a twisted grin curling back across his face, the kind of smirk that never quite told the truth, just hinted at danger. He walked slowly, almost too slowly, back toward the ring, dragging the moment out like a sadist savoring control. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed stood halfway up the ramp, their brows furrowed, unsure if they were supposed to follow or hold. Rollins didn't even glance back. He didn't need to. He moved with purpose, one foot in front of the other like he already knew the carnage that was about to unfold. The arena stirred again, pockets of the audience beginning to shout, boo, and cry out warnings. Others fell into hushed silence, sensing something darker, more irreversible was about to erupt. This wasn't Rollins playing games. This was the setup. At the foot of the ramp, he paused and stared at Roman Reigns in the ring. Reigns didn't move, his body still, his aura volcanic. Rollins shouted with no mic, his voice picked up faintly by the cameras. "You think I'm scared of this?" The words dripped with venom, not insecurity. He stepped onto the ring stairs. "Jay. Naomi. You think this is a threat?" There was no hesitation in his voice. He climbed onto the apron but didn't step through the ropes. Roman raised a hand and motioned him in. Rollins ignored it, locking eyes with Reigns and letting that smile twist into something colder. This wasn't arrogance. This was premeditated. And then it started. Without warning, Bron Breakker launched down the ramp like a battering ram and obliterated Jey Uso with a thunderous shoulder block that sent the former tag champ tumbling across the mat. Naomi turned just in time to see Bronson Reed bulldozing toward her like a wrecking ball. He crushed her against the ropes, and she crumpled in a heap, her body folding from the sheer impact. In that moment, the ring descended into bedlam. Rollins slipped under the ropes and caught Roman Reigns from behind with a running knee to the spine that dropped the tribal chief to a knee. The crowd erupted into a mixture of screams, outrage, disbelief, and bloodlust. This wasn't a match. It was a planned assassination. Rollins mounted Roman and began hammering away with punches to the back of the head. Breakker stomped Jey in the ribs while Reed picked up Naomi and threw her violently into the corner. The commentary team was scrambling for words. This is a setup. What the hell are we watching? It's an ambush, pure, calculated destruction. Outside the ring, Paul Heyman was pacing like a madman, barking orders into a headset, his voice cracking with adrenaline and fear. No mercy, don't let up. Take them out. Inside the ring, Roman struggled to his feet, his instincts kicking in through the haze. Rollins grabbed him by the hair and screamed into his face, "You think you're still untouchable? This is MY World now." He slapped Roman twice across the face. Roman didn't react. Even as blood ran from the corner of his mouth, he held his ground. The crowd sensed the tide shifting. "Roman! Roman! Roman!" they chanted, a drumbeat of defiance. Rollins backed up and shouted for the stomp. Breakker held Roman steady. Rollins charged, bounced off the ropes, only to get dropped mid-stride by a blistering Superman punch that came out of nowhere. Reigns, still on one knee, swung like a man possessed. Rollins flipped through the air and hit the canvas hard. Breakker rushed in, but Reigns ducked low and speared him in the ribs, sending both of them tumbling. Reed tried to grab Naomi again, but she twisted midlift and launched him into the turnbuckle with a vicious head scissors takedown that rattled the entire ring. Jey Uso, crawling with rage, exploded to his feet and blasted Breakker with a super kick that sent him reeling through the ropes. Roman dragged himself upright, blood dripping from his mouth, but his eyes were laser-focused. Rollins was crawling for the ropes, trying to escape. Roman shouted, "You want to be king? You better learn how to bleed for it." He grabbed Rollins by the throat and slammed him down with a monstrous urinage. Outside the ring, Heyman was frantic. "Get security out here now. Get someone, anyone, down here." But even he knew, deep down, that it was already too late. The war had already begun. Naomi climbed to the second rope and dropped a brutal leg across Reed's throat. She rolled to her feet and glared out at Heyman. "You did this. You made this happen," she shouted. Jey, fueled by fury, soared from the top rope and splashed Breakker just as he tried to rise. The crowd detonated. "New Shield! New Shield!" chanted the fans as Roman stood in the middle of the ring like a war god, breathing heavy, blood on his fists, sweat pouring down his face. He paced with the swagger of a man who had taken everything they'd thrown at him, and survived. Rollins tried to rise. Roman reached down, pulled him up, and cracked him again with another Superman punch, sending him down like a puppet with its strings cut. Roman stood over him, his breath ragged, the audience chanting his name. Then came the exclamation point. He turned to the hard camera and raised 3 fingers. Not 1. Not 2. 3. Then he pointed down, shield. But not the same. Evolved. Naomi walked into the center of the ring and stood beside him. Jay joined. Shoulder to shoulder, fists out. The barricades rattled as the crowd pounded in rhythm. Boom. 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 Security raced down the ramp, officials and producers in chaos. But they didn't go after Roman. They began pulling Rollins, Breakker, and Reed from the wreckage like defeated rebels dragged from a battlefield. Paul Heyman backed away, shouting orders that no one obeyed, his face pale, his eyes wide with the horrifying realization that his power had just been eclipsed. As Rollins was dragged up the ramp, blooded and broken, he looked back once more. He saw Reigns. He saw Jay. He saw Naomi. And in that second, fear, not anger, not shock, real fear overtook his face. Because for the first time in a decade, he wasn't the one with the upper hand. He wasn't controlling the narrative. Roman grabbed a microphone and looked down at him. "Seth," he said with icy calm, "I told you I wasn't alone." He turned to Jay. Then to Naomi. "We built the house you're squatting in, and now, we're kicking you out." He dropped the mic, the sound echoing like a final nail in a coffin. Then came the pose, 3 fists united at center ring. This was no reunion. This was reinvention. This was a new holy trinity forged in betrayal, in pain, and in purpose. No music. No pyro. Just a storm. But it wasn't over. Out of the smoke, 2 more hooded figures emerged, cutting through the chaos like phantoms. One launched a perfect superkick that dropped Breakker again. The other collided with Reed in mid-motion and sent him flying like a wrecking ball. They moved with military precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation. One unmasked. The crowd gasped. "That's Jay. Jay Uso is back with Roman," screamed commentary. The second removed their hood. Naomi. No glow. No filters. Just fury. The arena erupted. Naomi stood not as an accessory, but as a cornerstone. Rollins looked up from the wreckage he once controlled, and realized he had been outplayed, outflanked, outmatched. The Anoa'i dynasty had just declared war. And this time, the story wasn't about justice. It was about vengeance, legacy, blood. This was history rewritten in war paint. The betrayal that shattered the original Shield in 2014 had festered for a decade. Rollins never apologized. He never repented. He wore betrayal like armor, built a career on the ashes. The S.